for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson, and I'm your co-host.
My name is Jack Prince, your fellow co-host.
Well, Jack, nice sunny day for once. It's been raining up here for the last couple of days. I guess that kind of describes the mood of most people in Michigan. We'll get into all of that and how Michigan has become a national embarrassment once again. Probably worldwide at this point. I don't know. But before we get into that, a couple of reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker.com. Do a search for Southpaws there. Our podcast can also be found at the iTunes Store. Do a search for Southpaws under podcasts. Once you've found our logo, you've found us. Links to our podcast go up on our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube accounts. So go to youtube.com, do a search for Southpaws Radio there. And, of course, you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations across the country, including KCEI-FM Taos, New Mexico, KZGM Kabul, Missouri, and at Global Community Radio Channel 1. We're on every Saturday night at 11 p.m., so make sure you check us out there. Oh, hi, Buster. Yeah, if you hear...
Is Buster the associate producer? Of course, Chico's got to be the major producer.
Yeah.
Can they work together, you think?
I don't know. Buster's got his own little attitude.
So does Chico. That's the problem.
Yeah. Buster is a cat that somebody dropped off on the farm here in August of 19, and we tried to find a home for him, and nobody would take him, and the shelters wouldn't take him. So he just kind of hung around with us, and we kind of got to love him, and now he's part of the family. So,
and Chico is the 6-pound Chihuahua who has a 60-pound attitude.
Yep.
And has been the main producer for the show, but he could use some help. So Run it by Buster, let us know.
Yeah, well, Buster weighs over 10 pounds. He's between 10 and 11 pounds, so he outweighs Chico. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, we got to have a laugh to kind of distract us from everything that's going on. We are recording.
Sure.
We are recording today on Friday, May 1st. Today is May Day, and there's supposed to be some big walkouts among workers today. I have this story. This is Daniel A. Medina writing for The Intercept. This is dated April 28th. An unprecedented coalition of workers from some of America's largest companies will strike on Friday. Workers from Amazon, Instacart, Whole Foods, Walmart, Target, and FedEx are slated to walk out on work, citing what they say is their employers' record profits at the expense of workers' health and safety during the coronavirus pandemic. The employees will call out sick or walk off the job during their lunch break, according to a press release set to be published by organizers on Wednesday. In some locations, rank-and-file union members will join workers outside their warehouses and storefronts to support the demonstrations. Daniel Westbrook, a Whole Foods employee and strike organizer, said, quote, "We are acting in conjunction with workers at Amazon, Target, Instacart, and other companies for International Workers' Day to show solidarity with other essential workers in our struggle for better protections and benefits in the pandemic." End of quote. The labor action comes as workers and organizers say Amazon in particular has not been forthcoming about the number of COVID-19 cases at its more than 175 fulfillment centers globally. Jana Jump, an Indiana Amazon employee, along with her small team of fellow Amazon workers, has over the last month tallied COVID-19 cases at Amazon warehouses in the United States. According to Jump, there have been at least 500 coronavirus cases in at least 125 Amazon facilities. Jump suspects that the number is much higher, but says this is what she and her team have been able to directly confirm through their sourcing, which includes screenshots of internal company texts and voicemails to employees when cases have arisen, in addition to messages received from Amazon workers on private Facebook groups. The numbers, which have not been previously reported, are the most comprehensive to this point. Amazon declined to comment on the numbers of sick workers compiled by organizers. Amazon spokesperson Rachel Lightly said, quote, "While we respect people's right to express themselves, we object to the irresponsible actions of labor groups in spreading misinformation and making false claims about Amazon during this unprecedented health and economic crisis. We have gone to extreme measures to understand and address this pandemic." End of quote. Let me stop there for a second. No, they haven't. They've covered it up. They haven't been giving their employees the proper PPE or hand sanitizer. They're making people go to work sick. Sorry, they're not taking extreme measures. They're taking extreme measures for their own profits to help keep Bezos in his multiple houses. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it is.
Let me continue here. The May 1st strike is the latest in a wave of actions led by union and non-union frontline workers. Last month, Amazon workers in New York City and more than 10,000 Instacart workers across the country staged a walkout. Whole Foods employees led a national sick-out on March 31st, while upwards of 800 workers skipped their shifts at a Colorado meatpacking plant as coronavirus cases were confirmed among employees. Sanitation workers in Pittsburgh and bus drivers in Detroit both staged wildcat strikes. Let me skip down a little bit here. The workers chose May 1st, International Workers' Day, as a signal to workers everywhere that collectively they can take on corporate behemoths. That is according to Christian Smalls, a lead organizer of the strike. Amazon fired Smalls on March 30th, only hours after he led his colleagues on a walkout in protest of Amazon's response to the pandemic. That happened in Staten Island, New York. Amazon said Smalls was fired for violating a company-enforced quarantine. And we'll stop there. We know that's a bunch of bullshit.
No, seriously.
Let me continue here. The firing galvanized frontline workers everywhere who sent dozens of messages daily to Smalls asking how they, too, could organize work stoppages to protest their workplace conditions. Smalls joined forces with workers' rights groups like Amazonians United, Target Workers Unite, Whole Worker, and the Gig Workers Collective, among others. The coalition organized the strike over the last several weeks on Zoom calls and encrypted messaging apps like Telegram and Signal. Civil rights icon Reverend Jesse Jackson joined in on one Zoom call to briefly address the organizers, offering the full support of his Rainbow Push network. He told the participants, quote, "I am with you in your struggle," end of quote. The Intercept spoke to 20 organizers from more than a half dozen states, reflecting the widespread nature of the strike. From Whole Food workers in Boston to Instacart gig workers in Silicon Valley to Amazon warehouse organizers in Kentucky and Michigan, their stories and demands varied, but together illustrated a pattern of corporate neglect toward workers now regarded as essential, alongside doctors, nurses, and EMT workers during the coronavirus outbreak that has forced much of the nation into home lockdown. I'm just going to stop it there, because a lot of the states are starting to get out of lockdown at this point, and I've got a feeling that we're going to be seeing a second wave of coronavirus infections and a second wave of deaths, possibly worse than the first wave.
Yeah, ain't no question about it. The breeding grounds are on the beaches of Florida and on the Capitol steps of the cities where these idiots are congregating. That's tomorrow's future. And, what are we at, 65,000 now, deaths?
I'm not sure what the exact number is. Yeah,
it's very close to that. And the projection was way more than what Trump ever imagined. And when it's double this number, and the research, the spike that you're talking about, is directly related to this reopening. what are they going to say? What are they going to do? Because he's running out of excuses. Is it Iran? What's he going to do when it's been proven that his instigation of these redneck idiots is responsible for the next spike that's coming? They can't BS their way out of it. Again, I'll go back. The scoreboard to the sky, the numerical record of his incompetency will be his downfall. He can't lie away the numbers, even though he's tried like mad to contain them. We got Fed stealing PPE around the nation.
Mm-hmm.
We got Florida with the medical examiners being prohibited from releasing corona death data. We had his continual disfavor of testing, even though out of one corner of his mouth he said that they were sending millions of tests, et cetera, et cetera. He never wanted that because that also feeds into the scoreboard in the sky, which ultimately, if there's anything out of this nightmare tragedy, if it can bring him to his knees, that would be one small lining of silver.
Yeah, I talked about the theft of PPE by Department of Homeland Security on the show last week, and it just came out within the last few days. The governor of Massachusetts did an interview with the Washington Post, and this guy is a Republican, said that he is hiding coronavirus tests from the federal government so they don't get seized. They had to buy them on the black market from South Korea and fly them into Baltimore International Airport because there's customs officials at Washington Dulles and they didn't want anything seized. He sent the National Guard to protect this shipment.
That's Massachusetts, right?
That's Massachusetts. These tests are under guard by the Massachusetts National Guard and Massachusetts State Police. Have we got
the same thing is happening in Maryland, Darren?
Yeah.
The governor of Maryland is hiding out the supplies. Imagine, we've got to hide life-saving tests from the President of the United States.
Yeah. What's DHS doing with these? What's Homeland Security doing with this stuff?
What he's doing is protecting his political image. He knows that it is threatened like never before.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, you had mentioned Florida. Let's get to that story here. This is Jeffrey Martin writing for Newsweek. Folks, this isn't some conspiratorial website reporting this. This is frickin' Newsweek. Here's the story. This is dated April 29th. Exactly how many people have died in Florida as a result of contracting coronavirus may be in question after reports on Wednesday indicated that data compiled by medical examiners in Florida was squelched by the state government. Lists from the medical examiners had shown a higher number of deaths than the official count from the Florida Department of Health, according to reporting from the Tampa Bay Times. Chairman of the Florida State Medical Examiners Commission, Dr. Stephen Nelson, said state officials were planning on redacting certain information such as causes of death and descriptions of the cases. Data from medical examiners have not been released in over 7 days. Florida's medical examiners were populating their list of coronavirus statistics based on deaths by county. Included within that number were people who were not necessarily year-round residents of Florida, which included seasonal residents of the state, tourists, or other visitors. However, the Florida Department of Health had only been counting official Florida residents. Between the two lists, there was a differential in the daily tallies of nearly 10%. Nelson told the Times that coronavirus statistics are public information and should be released. Florida Health Department spokesman Alberto Moscoso said the department had, quote, privacy concerns for the individuals that passed away related to COVID-19, end of quote. However, data from medical examiners do not provide any names. Nelson added this on Wednesday, quote, this is no different than any other public record we deal with. It's paid for by taxpayer dollars and the taxpayers have a right to know, end of quote. In April, Florida's congressional Democrats wrote a letter to Governor Ron DeSantis asking for accurate coronavirus statistics information. The letter read in part, quote, we ask that you work with the Department of Health and county medical examiners to ensure the COVID-19 cases are detected and reported accurately, end of quote. In a statement provided to Newsweek on Thursday, the Florida State Emergency Operations Center said information from medical examiners is still included in Department of Health data since it is reported directly to the state of Florida. Here's what their statement read in part. Quote, data released by medical examiners and the data released by the Department of Health can differ based on the fact that medical examiners include non-Florida residents in their reports. The state reports this data to the CDC and the state of residency, but does not include it on the COVID-19 dashboard to avoid doubling counting with other states. This is the same protocol that other states have for Florida residents. End of quote. Are you buying any of this, Jack?
No, not a dime of it.
Maybe we need to contact Michigan's Department of Health and say, out of all those deaths of Michiganders, how many of them were snowbirds that died in Florida, but their permanent residence is Michigan? Maybe we need to get on the horn with them. Yeah,
I've been on the horn. That passes the time. I was chewing Meijer's butt out yesterday for letting people in with no mask on. That took a few hours. So, yeah, I'll call. I got nothing better to do.
I'll tell you what, let me talk about my little experience shopping at Meijer yesterday. Oh, my gosh. Most people had masks on. And by the way, this is now part of a new executive order that was issued by Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer last week. You must wear a mask in public unless you have a medical condition that precludes you from wearing a mask. Let's say you have asthma. If you've got really bad asthma, wearing a mask will restrict the flow of oxygen to your body, so you're exempt.
Notice, Republicans, that order did not say mental conditions, so you can't use your mental conditions.
Exactly. And here's the thing about it. And I had somebody arguing, well, I've got asthma. You want me to wear a mask? I said, no, you're an exception. I'm talking about the grandmother, mother, and 2 kids wandering around Meijer yesterday, not a single one of them wearing masks.
Right. Yeah, and the thing is, Darren, they don't wear it proudly. They walk around with their mug in the air like they got some freedom, like they're independent. Like the one protester I saw interviewed down at the Capitol screaming out of her pickup truck, I was born free, I'm an American, I'm going to stay free. And they wear it with honor. They stick that mug out. I saw one protester, 3 inches away from a state policeman screaming into his face. Mm-hmm. And I can only imagine. Well, let's face it. How is that any more dangerous than brandishing a sword or a knife right in front of a man's face? How is it? You just can't see it. It's invisible.
Yeah. We'll get into what happened in Michigan in just a little bit here. But you sent me
before we leave the Meijers real quickly, I've got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think it's out of place to ask one of those people why they don't have a mask on? I mean, if the store guard, which I didn't see at the Meijers I was in, refuses to challenge them, what about the public? It's your safety. Mm-hmm. I mean, if somebody's walking down the toilet paper aisle with a rattlesnake under their arm, I think you have a right to say something about it.
Exactly.
To the person.
That's right.
You're exposing me, you're exposing my family by extension to a life-threatening virus by walking around with your face uncovered.
They can say they've got freedom. They're free to be dumb, but they're free to be dumb is going to kill other people. And that's the part that these people don't understand. They're selfish, they're arrogant, they're ignorant. You can quote me on this. Selfish, arrogant, ignorant.
I've used the quote that came from the movie The Hoosiers, where the one coach says to the other, he goes, you know what, if a guy goes out and he howls at the moon all night, that's crazy. But that's his business. But if he is hurting me or my family, something has to be done. Exactly. Now, he wasn't referring to a virus. He's talking about a coach who was supposed to come in and mess up his dream team. But the point is, there have been acts of idiocy from the right wing that you and I have commented on for a long time, never to the degree where it is so closely damaging the health and safety of others. That's the difference with today's idiocy.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I remember on our show, we highlighted in Bay City a whole troop of four-wheel drive Confederate draped pickups surrounded a high school in Bay City because one black student had the temerity to speak out against treatment there. So that's stupid. That's real stupid. And that ultimately does injure people, but not to the degree of walking around exposing people to your virus.
Yeah, and while we're talking about Meijer, let me just mention this. Part of the executive order said that stores have the right to refuse service and refuse entry to anyone not wearing a mask. That is period, end of story. Menards, Home Depot, Speedway gas stations. If you don't have a mask on at a Speedway gas station, you're asked to leave. If you don't leave, you're forcefully ejected.
Good.
And you're going to get arrested. It's called criminal trespass. It's private property. You don't have a right to act like a jackass in public on private property.
And Meijers, I'm going to speak directly to you because I called the manager at a Meijers near where I live. Mm-hmm. And I said, I bet a third of the people I saw in your store had no masks on, running around with no mask. There's an order out, and that order says that you as a store have the right to refuse them service. Mm-hmm. He said, oh, no, the order says that they can't be punished. That Whitmer said that they can't be legally punished.
Legally?
I said,
but they can be ejected from the store?
You're not legally punishing them, tell them to go home and get a mask.
Yeah.
That's not a fine. I didn't tell you to go out and give them a ticket. I said you have the right as a responsible manager to protect your patrons inside the store by refusing these people service. Mm-hmm. And he would not acknowledge, oh, that's not there. I said it most certainly is there. And what Darren Gibson just quoted is absolutely true. Any store, all stores, and there are some stores, not just Speedway, that are enforcing that. But not Meijers, because Meijers doesn't want to step on any conservative toes.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Menards is even more conservative than the Meijer family is.
Yeah,
They're big Trump supporters.
Yeah.
And guess what they're doing? There was one case, and I forget which store it was, but the guy, I don't know if he went into the store without a mask or if he wore one and then took it off once he got inside. But once he was found inside, he was forcefully ejected from the store, kicked out.
Good.
Sorry. Actions have consequences. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. However you want to say it. It's unreal.
And these guys will crawl back out into the pickup thinking, man, you know what? I am one patriot. I'm exercising my freedom.
No, what they're exercising is terrorism disguised as patriotism.
Yeah, exactly.
Matter of fact, let's get into the protest that happened Thursday down in the capital of Lansing.
Both feet.
Several hundred right-wing, ultra-conservative, radical morons gathered on the steps, no masks, but plenty of guns around, bitching and complaining about, oh, Whitmer's being a tyrant. Whitmer's trying to save your life, you fucking idiot.
Hey, listen, they threatened Whitmer with a hanging.
Yeah.
I saw a sign that said, a rope for the tyrant, something to that effect. I may have missed some of that. But they were threatening physical damage. You know, when you stand with these guns draped over your shoulder, and you know behind that mask, you have a brain the size of a walnut. You have to feel somewhat paranoid. If I was a senator down on the floor in the House or in the House Representative, and I realized just how darkened their gray matter is up on the balcony above me with a automatic rifle. They had bulletproof vests on. But the scary thing is this is a combination of firepower and ignorance like we've never seen before, standing right in the face of our Capitol. If they had been blacks or a group of hippies or a code pink with those rifles, they all would have been ejected, ticketed, in some cases maybe shot. You get 300 black guys walking around the Capitol building? What the hell do you think would have happened? Or Hispanics?
Yeah.
Who are they kidding?
Yeah.
You have given them the keys. You've given them the keys to the streets. The law enforcement. They're complicit.
Yep. If you want to see the perfect example of white privilege, there it is, right there.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, if several hundred African Americans showed up in Lansing to surround the Capitol armed with guns, they would be mowed down.
Yep.
You can guarantee it.
And then Trump had the temerity to send a message out that Whitmer needed to compromise to put out the fire. Put out the fire, Trump? What fire? The fire you kindled?
Those are good
when you
people,
called her
Jack.
a halfwit? What's that?
He said they're good people. Where have we heard this before?
Oh, yeah.
Charlottesville, Virginia.
Exactly. You know, Darren, I've had a lot of free time, so I've watched some of my old favorite movies. I just finished Lord of the Rings, all three of them, where the evil force lets the orcs out of the caves. You remember the orcs down there, these ugly guys, teeth all bent over and everything. All they were lacking is a Confederate flag. Well, the orcs, were designed for an evil purpose, and Trump has his orcs. And when Trump was rebuffed, remember, by the wording in the Constitution a few weeks back that totally disallowed him the ability to dictate when states could be reopened.
Mm-hmm.
And he threw his little temper tantrum, but he knew he couldn't change the ink on the Constitution. Okay? So he let his orcs out. It may not be a perfect comparison, but he let them the hell out. He incited them. He dog-whistled them. And what you see right now is a direct result of the fire he built, and he's imploring Whitmer to put out that fire. The ignorance crawled out of holes and congregated in complete violation of the rule of law and the safety of others like no other time in Michigan history. You were right earlier, Darren, when you said it is a shame on the state. Mississippi or worse.
Yeah.
It's been a perfect storm for them. On our show, we've warned liberals and progressives, don't lose the streets. Don't complain about Antifa, because you lose the streets, we're in real trouble. And right now, these idiots have a perfect storm. Think about it. They're being funded secretly by billionaires like DeVos. They have immunity from the police. We've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
Total and complete.
Yeah.
And most importantly, we can't push back. When I say we, the left can't push back in any protest form. Because if we do, we're violating the very principle of us obeying the law, which is not to congregate. So we're left to what? Nasty Facebook posts?
Mm-hmm.
The left will not violate the order, so the fools reign in the streets.
Yeah.
Uncontested.
Yeah.
We warned, I'm going to repeat, for months on this show, hell, for years in the past, we warned that all the clamor against Antifa, saying remember the post, saying, well, they're just as bad as the racists and the white supremacists, no.
They're not.
We said, you lose the streets. And folks, you look around right now, you see who is reigning. And don't talk about polls. Don't tell me how many Michiganders support Whitmer. That's good, and I'm one of those that support her.
So
but 200-300 protesters in the Capitol left unchallenged just perpetuates more of the fools. They don't give a damn about the polls.
No, they
don't read
certainly
the Facebook post, Darren. They don't listen to our show. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah. I tell you what, though, I did like it on Wednesday. 3 protesters got into the Capitol building when it was closed off, and they got forcefully ejected by the ushers in the Capitol building.
Is a sister of one of our friends that we do.
Yeah, I personally know this woman. She should have been tased multiple times and then arrested. Let her rot. You think I'm joking? I'm dead serious.
No, I know.
I tell you what, I heard it. I tell you what, I'll be dead serious when I say this too, and I'm addressing this to Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I tell you what, they form another protest, you better have armed Michigan State Police SWAT team and the National Guard out. First one in, drop them. Period. You better take control. This is Popper's paradox of tolerance. If you tolerate the intolerant will take over.
That's true, Darren. That's 100% true. Take control. We certainly, as a show or individuals, don't desire anybody to be shot. But the consequences of losing control, if it takes violence, if it takes arrest, et cetera, to quell this, it's necessary now. We need it badly.
Yes, definitely. Oh, boy. Hey, Jack, I didn't tell you, we've got a new sponsor to the show.
Hey, great.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and read the copy to you. If you or a loved one died from injecting disinfectant, Call the law office of You're a Moron and Deserve It at 1-800-DUMBASS. That's 1-800-DUMBASS. I'm a non-attorney spokesperson. We might as well get into that. Can we talk about that a little bit more? I mentioned it last week on the show, but somebody who wasn't available to talk about it last week, who is this week, is longtime national shock jock Howard Stern. Got on the air Monday and started talking about Trump, and I've got the audio of it here, folks. This is beautiful. You know, Jack, the thing is that I have never really been a big fan of Stern. In my eyes, there's only been one king of Grand Rapids morning radio, and that is, and always will be the late, great Rick Beckett. But I got to agree with Stern on this one. I'll play this. This runs about 25 seconds. If you think that I am out of control with some of the things I say, listen to this.
I mean, I would love if Donald would get on TV and take an injection of Clorox, and let's see if his theory works. Let him volunteer, or hold a big rally. Say, F this coronavirus, with all of his followers, and let them all hug each other and kiss each other and have a big rally.
Big cocktail of disinfectant.
Yeah, and all take disinfectant and all drop dead.
What do you think, Jack? Too far?
Can't go too far. Well, how is that any more radical than them getting together when we understand how this virus promulgates? I know the hyperbole with drinking the bleach, but in bottom life and death statistics, is it any less dangerous to, get out there and be screaming down with Whitmer with the virus floating around in the air? I don't think that Stern would sign a piece of paper saying, I wish these people would be killed in reality. But I think his point is that this is so bad, it would make no difference. It might make people safer if they expired, if they were gone. What they're doing is dangerous. You take a gunman walking around the Capitol waving it, what are they going to do to him, Darren? They're going to blow him away. They used to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You take a black man in the middle of the street waving a gun, even if it's a plastic one. Doesn't make a difference. 12-year-olds been blown away.
Yeah. As a matter of fact,
the weapon down there is their mouth. Again, with a walnut-sized brain behind it.
Well, the thing is, Jack, we're recording this, as I mentioned, on Friday, May 1st. Monday is the 50th anniversary of Kent State.
There you go.
Those were peaceful protesters protesting the Vietnam War. Not a gun among the bunch.
Yep.
And we ended up with 4 dead in Ohio, as Neil Young sang.
Yeah, look at the pictures, the anniversary. Look at the pictures of those faces, those young people. One was getting into the car. I've been at Kent State. I've seen the memorials scattered around. The one that was killed in the parking lot, it's over a football field away.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a protester. It was a person getting into the car with books under their arms after a class and was murdered.
Yeah.
And you look at the protesters down in the Capitol building from yesterday, and they call that peaceful protest. No, here's peaceful protest, conservatives. A quarterback who is protesting by kneeling at the national anthem to highlight the police brutality his race has experienced, which has been quantitated in huge numbers of shootings in the last year. And he peacefully takes his helmet off. That's peaceful protest. They had a hissy fit over that. They still have a hissy fit over that. But to go down there with your kids and expose themselves to virus, like you said, even at Meijer's, running around with no mask on, that's not peaceful protest.
Let me do the comparison.
Don't claim they have a right to do that. That's what they're doing. Say, we got a right to protest. Who's the speaker? Chatfield? Is that his name?
Lee Chatfield is the House Speaker.
Yeah, he was on the radio, NPR this morning. Oh, I'm all for. I'm going to tell you right now, there was no GOP leadership anywhere in this state that condemned the guns and the intimidation. Not one had their hair in their butt to say a peep about it. And Chatfield's no exception. All he could do was waive the right to protest. The right to protest. You don't have a right to protest when it endangers life. You don't.
Nope. And I got some bad news for folks. I think we mentioned it on the show a couple of weeks ago. Whitmer could get even more draconian with her order. She would legally be allowed to say, you keep your ass at home, period. If you don't, you're under arrest. She has the absolute legal right to do so under emergency powers during a pandemic. There's 200 years worth of constitutional law and rulings stating that.
Yeah.
People forget their history. We've talked about the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic in the country, and people don't realize it. Tell you what.
Yeah.
They had powers back then. If you got the flu in 1918, the Board of Health came and tacked a notice on your door that said quarantined. Nobody is allowed entry or departure from this house under penalty of arrest.
Look at New Zealand. Look at Australia. Look at these other countries. When a person tested positive, they were physically forced into quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
They were isolated. The government stepped in. We didn't have that. We don't have that here. Now we're at almost 70,000 deaths. We didn't have any tests, first of all, to verify that they had it. If they did take that test, then they could have been separated from contact with other people. They have zero. It's gone in New Zealand, Darren. They stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
Same in Australia. Every place where they cracked down, I repeat, Chatfield, where they cracked down, they saved lives, thousands of lives.
Mm-hmm. They most certainly have. Take a look at Sweden. Sweden didn't do lockdown of any kind. No stay-at-home orders, nothing. Guess what? They're starting to see a spike in cases compared to their neighbors, like Norway, like Switzerland, like Denmark.
Yeah, see, the Republicans don't have enough political balls
mm-hmm.
to impose such a crackdown on these morons.
Yeah.
That are willing to sacrifice grandpa and grandma for their convenience so they can buy flowers mm-hmm. and they can get their nails done.
Yeah. Did you see, by the way, that 3rd Congressional U.S. District candidate Tom Norton went and got a haircut in Lansing prior to the protests?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah. Some barber in Lansing opened up for Tom Norton, and he got a haircut. Unbelievable. The same Tom Norton. Well, one of these days I'll have to get into Tom Norton and his time as the president of the village of Sand Lake, Michigan. Maybe we'll have to get somebody from the Cedar Springs Post who reported on all the shenanigans up there to talk about that. Tom Norton doesn't live in Sand Lake anymore. My opinion, he was run out on a rail. Which is great, but let me make 2 other points, and then we'll continue on here. We can go back a little bit further into history. In 1905, there was a smallpox epidemic going on in this country, and the courts ruled that the states had the right to force vaccinations because public safety supersedes constitutional rights. 200 years of case law says so.
Yep.
And then you had mentioned Trump and you had mentioned the protesters. Let's take a look on one hand. You got Trump saying that the protesters in Michigan on Thursday, those are good people. Where Trump says about Colin Kaepernick, fire that son of a bitch.
Yeah.
There it is. There's your dichotomy, folks.
Exactly.
Yep. I'm going to read a little bit of this article. This is Jeffrey C. Billman writing for the Detroit Metro Times. The headline of the article is Donald Trump and the Death Cult are putting people in danger to own the libs. At 6:41 a.m. on Tuesday, an ornery Donald Trump hopped on Twitter to hate on MSNBC's Morning Joe and beat his chest about how much Republicans love him and how that proved how well he was handling the coronavirus pandemic, how he got better ratings than Monday Night Football and The Bachelor, and most of all, how mean journalists are to him. He whined, quote, "It is amazing that I became president of the United States with such a totally corrupt and dishonest lamestream media going after me all day and all night," end of quote. He's ignored the fact that, at that point, over 50,000 Americans had died within the previous 6 weeks. By the way, we've had more people die of coronavirus in this country than American casualties during the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
There it is,
you can
folks.
Take the Vietnam War and you can take 9/11 and add them together, and the virus has still outnumbered them. 58,220 in Vietnam, 2,997 9/11, comes to 61,197. And as we said earlier in the show, we're close to 65. The last I saw, we're very close to 65,000.
Jeffrey continues in his article here. He says, I will grant him this. It does, in fact, amaze me that Donald Trump became president even 3.5 years after it happened. It amazes me that someone so small holds the same title as Abraham Lincoln and Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Barack Obama. Hell, as Benjamin Harrison, Herbert Hoover, and Richard Nixon. It amazes me that a man who will soon rack up a body count that exceeds the whole of the Vietnam War and an unemployment rate that tops the Great Depression has the gall to boast about his news conference ratings. For that matter, it amazes me that thumb-sucking news executives broadcast these self-serving shows.
That's too good.
Oh, I love that. That is spectacular.
See, that's I'm an old teacher in English. That's alliteration. Self-serving show. That's repetition of the S consonant. That's alliteration. That's beautiful. That's poetic. Self-serving show. That comes off the tongue, doesn't it, nicely?
It sure does. All right. Now you got to stop because I got to edit this damn thing. All right. Let me continue. It amazes me that an imbecile who managed to bankrupt casinos will, despite evidence of his own failures, demand the governors reopen their states, even if doing so endangers their citizens. If they refuse, he'll sick his lackey attorney general on them. And it amazes me that nearly 1,200 days into the cesspool of corruption, did you know the Trump organization's looking for bailouts from the Trump administration? Democrats are still so risibly feckless. An example, last week the Senate passed a $484 billion package that funnels $310 billion into the exhausted Paycheck Protection Program. It also provides billions for hospitals and a federal plan for COVID-19 testing. Things that, astoundingly, Democrats won as concessions. What's not in the bill? Money to help states and cities whose budgets have been wrecked by the economic slowdown. Unlike the Fed, state and local governments generally can't run deficits, so without federal help, they'll face huge tax hikes and or sweeping service cuts that invariably harm the poor. Things that turn bad economic situations into human misery. Democrats wanted $150 billion in aid. Republicans blocked it. Democrats, who controlled the House of Representatives and could have forced the issue, rolled over like cowering puppies when Republicans pinky swore that they'd take up local aid in the next relief package. Then, as soon as the Senate passed the bill, Mitch McConnell got that old-time fiscal responsibility religion. Maybe we can't afford more relief packages, he said. Womp womp. It's not like Republicans hadn't telegraphed the play. Look no further than the Wall Street Journal's editorial board, that direct conduit to the Italian-suited plutocrat crowd that runs GOP fiscal policy. On Friday, they wrote this, quote, but the White House and Trump administration have been holding out because, in part, they believe if Congress keeps cutting checks for state and local governments, they will be disincentivized to open up their economies, end of quote. I'm going to stop there because I've heard this argument from conservatives on social media. Well, you can't let unemployment run forever. You're going to disincentivize these people to go back to work.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
That's like, who was the Republican senator said, well, if we give them a pay increase, if we increase this $15, they're just going to go and drink and smoke it away.
Yeah.
I think that may have been the turtle.
Let me continue here real quick. Recall that the central tenet of the Trump presidency is the buck stops elsewhere. He gets credit for everything that goes right. Someone else gets blamed for anything that goes wrong. By pushing them to reopen now before there's anything like the expanded testing, contact tracing, and isolation regime experts say we need, Trump can claim credit for regrowing an economy that shed 26 million jobs in a month. If governors resist and their economies founder, that's on them. If they reopen and there's an outbreak, that's on them too. It's not Trump's fault they weren't prepared. He told them testing was their responsibility. And let me stop there. Again, this is the same Trump administration. Oh, the states are responsible for their own tests. But as soon as the state gets some tests, some of them off the black market, oh, Trump sends the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, to go get them and confiscate them.
Yeah.
The system's broke, folks. It doesn't need repair. It needs to be burned down.
And by the way, if you think the 26 million people who are unemployed is not going to come back like the old chickens come back to roost, if you think the stock market that keeps having some progress is really indicative of our economic future, you're really stupid. Trump has just continually fed the stock market and the one percenters and the corporations with your money, so to the tune of $6 trillion. You're waiting around. I'm waiting around for my $1,200 check, which I may never see. They're getting trillions of dollars. That loophole is going to come back. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen. He has been artificially keeping the stock market open because he couldn't handle a death number one day and the lowered stock market number the next day. He could not handle that. So he's got it on life support, but it will run out.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing that Trump doesn't want to shut down, he doesn't want to shut down the meat packing plants. He's using the Defense Authorization Act to keep the meat plants
the hell of the
open.
Workers.
Yeah. This is
Tyson,
just a perfect...
executive said the other day, it's inevitable. The chain's going to break.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. While I agree with this statement, you know who's responsible ultimately for the chain breaking? Big companies like Tyson themselves. Look at
what's the one? Smithfield, whatever the other one was.
Smithfield, JBS, all of them. By the way, Smithfield's owned by the Chinese. I hope everybody knows that.
No surprise there. But I've heard it's 9 days, and we're going to see the breakdown, the pork supply.
We're already starting to see breakdowns everywhere. I told you I went to Meijer yesterday. I couldn't find a piece of chicken anywhere in the frozen food aisle. No chicken, nothing. Not wings, not drums, nothing. The only thing they had available was fresh chicken, and they had some of it chopped up and in the cooler. That was it. They didn't have any chicken yesterday. This is Meijer. This is the largest grocer in Michigan.
Yeah.
The largest in the Midwest.
Spam. The hell with it.
Yeah.
Well,
the thing is you get people that hear this stuff on the news, then they go out and hoard. Let me tell you about something, Jack.
I know.
Jack, I have to take Pepcid AC. I have to take Pepcid Complete because I have acid reflux really, really bad at night. It'll come up in my throat. It'll wake me up. It'll feel like I'm choking to death. Okay. So I have to have it. I have to take one every night. That does the trick. Tums doesn't touch it most nights.
Okay.
So I have to get the expensive stuff. Well, a story was published earlier this week that some hospitals were using the active ingredient in Pepcid to treat coronavirus. Guess what everybody did? They rushed to the stores and hoarded Pepcid.
So you take your Pepcid tablet with a shot of bleach, and then you have intravenous Lysol, and you should be fine.
This is ridiculous. Jack, for the first time in weeks, I saw hand sanitizer on the shelf. For the first time in weeks, I saw disinfectant wipes on the shelf. I about fell over. I couldn't believe it.
At Meijer's, you saw those?
Yes.
I want to buy some.
Yeah.
Really?
It was unreal. I couldn't believe it.
Are you supposing that people just aren't worried that much about it?
I don't know.
They don't want to buy disinfectant? That would seem to me like a number one commodity. Like I said, I'm going to buy it. I'm about out what little supply I had.
Yeah, no, they're finally starting to stock up a little bit. I don't know if production's catching up, or if people have stocked up on so much, or if the limits that the stores have put on purchases is working, or if it's a combination of all of them. But I about fell over yesterday. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
I tell you what,
there's actually
they run out
wipes.
Of bacon. They run out of bacon and cigarettes. It'll be armed revolution. It'll be World War IV.
Oh, I guarantee it. You know what? I told one of our listeners yesterday off air on Facebook, I said, you know what? I called Civil War years ago when I first started this show. I said it would happen. And I said that I hope that I'm not around to see it. Well, I guess that hope's gone out the window because I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Well, I'll tell you, the clock towards the 12 high noon went a lot closer Thursday, right here in our capital.
Yep, it sure did.
Those shockwaves are going across the nation. So that revolution or that Civil War you're talking about has never been closer.
Exactly.
I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid that's true.
Yep, it sure is. All right, I want to go to a story that you sent me. This is Ewan Higgins writing for Common Dreams. The hashtag Fire Chris Hayes was trending on Twitter Thursday as the MSNBC anchor came under attack from liberals for airing a hard news report Wednesday night on allegations from former Senate staffer Tara Reade that former Vice President Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic Party presidential nominee, sexually assaulted her in the Capitol building in 1993. Lindsey Boylan, a progressive candidate for Congress for New York's 10th District, tweeted this, quote, "The fact that firing Chris Hayes is trending because he said the media needed to cover allegations of sexual misconduct made by a woman even when they're directed at powerful people who are respected is just peak 2020, end of quote. In his report on the allegation, Hayes went through the facts and soberly presented the case both for and against the allegation. The measured analysis provoked ire from Democrat-aligned critics like conspiracy theorist Bill Palmer, who demanded MSNBC remove the longtime All-In host for reporting the news. The network at press time did not have the segment available for viewing on either its main site or on its YouTube channel. As Common Dreams reported, the Reade scandal has prompted calls from Democrats for Biden to address the allegation, which he did Friday morning on Morning Joe. And what was it he said, Jack? It never happened. I lost track of how many nevers he said.
Like Peter Pan, Never Land.
Yeah, no kidding. So up until this morning, Friday morning, he had remained silent, but his campaign has repeatedly denied the charges. Progressives on Twitter Thursday pushed back against the attacks on Hayes. Lexi Alexander wrote this, quote, "Chris Hayes is a Russian shill now? Tara Reade is lying because her exact accusation was used in her father's book? Oh boy, I have bad news for them on how many real-life sexual assaults in Hollywood ended up in scripts after they happened and were talked about behind closed doors." End of quote. Let me go a little bit further into the piece. Journalist Glenn Greenwald pointed out that Hayes' own network was at least in part to blame for the partisan fire directed at the host. He tweeted this, quote, "Chris Hayes has been one of the media's most virulent, relentless, and arguably effective Trump critics, and all-consuming loathing for the president, but hashtag Fire Chris Hayes was trending because he covered the sex assault allegations against Biden. Shows what MSNBC has cultivated. Also, with this completely deranged backlash against Chris Hayes for the crime of covering what a news story, one that just happens to be unfavorable to Dems, you see the extreme career incentives for cable hosts never to tell their audiences anything they don't want to hear." End of quote.
That's it exactly. And listen, Democrats, if you think this is going to go away, if you think you can put your head in the sand, we said here on Southpaws weeks ago, this issue has more than enough legs, and it hasn't even been picked up by Trump yet. If you think this is going to disappear, if you think you can threaten people by firing them and make this dissolve, you're crazy. There was all kinds of substantiation, including a phone call that went into Larry King's show. They've traced back to the woman's mother,
yes,
neighbors who substantiated her testimony.
And I've heard the audio of that call. That's a legit call. By the way, if you try to find that video on CNN's website, it's not there. The whole show is deleted for that day.
Of course not. Yeah. Pretend it's not there. Go ahead, Dems. Pretend that Biden's not senile. Go ahead, try it. Mm-hmm. See how it works through the general election. Yeah. They're not only stupid. You know, we've been talking about red-hatted stupidity. Now we're talking blue-hatted stupidity and denial.
It's crazy, Jack. The whole world's gone nuts.
It is.
It really has. Yeah.
I
tell you what, I want to end with a little bit of good news here. I have this story. This is from nature.com. This was published on Thursday, April 29th. This is a report that says, according to Chinese research, if you get the coronavirus and you survive it, 100% of those survivors have antibodies in their system. Some have more than others, but everybody has antibodies. So that's some good news there if you get this.
Can they use it, antibody, then, as treatment?
That's what they've been doing. They've been getting plasma from people. There's a woman in Grand Rapids. She's in her early 20s. She contracted the virus while she was in Spain. She came back to the U.S., and she had recovered by this point. So she donated her plasma so that it could be used to treat other patients. Tom Hanks is doing that. Tom Hanks' wife is doing that. George Stephanopoulos at ABC News, he's doing that. I believe his wife, actress Allie Wentworth, is doing the same thing.
Great.
So I hope this helps.
Yeah, and there was another drug. This one looked like it had some authority, Citivir or something. I can't remember.
Remdesivir.
That's shown, in placebo trials to be effective. And, if it doesn't work, one like that eventually will. We got to hang on.
Yep.
They got to refuse the demand from the right to go out and hold hands and
sing Kumbaya
and together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And since we're talking about some science, there's a vaccine that's been developed in the UK, and I think we mentioned it on the show several weeks ago. It's being developed by Oxford University. Well, now, one of the big pharmaceutical companies, and I believe it's AstraZeneca, don't quote me on that, though, but they have come out and they feel that this vaccine has so much promise, they're starting to ramp up production, even though they just started testing on humans. They were testing the vaccine on a type of monkey. I believe it was 23 monkeys received this vaccine. Then they were exposed to coronavirus. Not one of them got sick. Not a single one.
That would work on a conservative then, for sure.
That's an insult to monkeys, Jack. Come on. Monkeys are smarter than conservatives.
After this week, I believe that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I tell you what, Jack, the clock just runs away from us, and we've already got to wrap up another show, but we will be back next week. So in the meantime,
yes, we will, folks.
I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Jack Prince.
For our announcer, Kristen Cook, please support independent media and the First Amendment, and please stay safe.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.